and you know, whatever. The guy assumes that you pushed in front of him. The next thing you know, you're in a confrontation. Okay, what you're doing, does it really address that? And when I say that, don't just assume, but how would you, what strategy and what tactics and what technique would you do based on this certain situation? It's very important. So then we have follow-on, right? So in Shuai Chiao, to me, it's very well laid out. It's a very simplistic approach and very effective, in my opinion, against physical conflict. You know, is it the best of every martial art? I can't answer that. And even if I thought that I knew all of the answers to it, then I would also have to deal with my own physical capacity, right? And that goes for everyone. Same thing that this guy's methodology as it relates to self-defense, or this system here that was a military system, or this one here was created on the back streets. Okay, that's cool. All of that is, all of those different approaches, but does it work for where you live at? And the things that you need to address. So follow on. In Shuai Chiao, again, when I execute a throw, I may throw you in such a way that when you hit, I may try to do damage to you so that you're no longer a threat, okay? And then there's also doing a throw in Shuai Chiao where I follow on, right? So say I do this throw, and then I may use this knee to pin the torso or pin the head or go back as I have some control over this arm. I could potentially turn that into a lock. What am I doing? I'm pinning them, right? I'm pinning them with my knee to their torso or to their head, or I'm going to move back and forth, right? But I maintain this mobility. Why do I want that mobility? I don't want to get off track, but I need that mobility because if I get the situation with the guy at the local grocery store in the parking lot, right? And he's got a couple of buds in the car waiting on him, and I start going to town on this guy. You think they're going to sit there and let their friend just get beat up? No, they're going to come over and help him out, or her out. They're going to come over and address the situation. I need to be, in my opinion, I need to be able to maintain this mobility. So if I am dealing with this person, I want to be able to move again. Okay, so that is this approach with Shuai Chiao. So I throw the person. I either throw them to incapacitate them, or I've thrown them, whether it's a takedown or a throw. I throw them. I try to seize or lock. I pin, and then I follow up with striking, right, and control. If I'm in this position, right, if I'm up and I've become detached from it, I'm going to follow up with kicks to the torso or to the head. Now, remember, I'm saying that I'm telling you what the method, right, the strategy, the tactics are. Don't get me confused when I say this. If you throw this person down and they're on the ground, anything that you do beyond that would potentially be considered assault, civilly or criminally. Be sure that what you're doing is not based on emotion, but is this necessary to do at this time? Over here, like I said, the non-trained person, somebody's trained for 6 months, they know a little bit of this, do not underestimate them. You could have trained for the last 10 years, and some other dude has had a few street fights, and he's good at it. Don't think that he or she could not win. Just because you have a black belt or you have this or whatever, that is illogical thinking. Again, most of the throwing type movements that they do are either going to be unintentional or innate, or it's going to be something that they may be seeing, either through taking martial arts for a few months, or they've seen it on TV several times. But the follow-on in reality is very similar. They're more than likely not going to try to do a lock on you, but potentially they're going to try to seize you. They may try to pin you, but they're definitely going to try to control you and strike you and kick you. the lack of empathy and what people see on sporting events or movies or games and things like that. We are removed from a real world situation. So a lot of people, I think they lack not just empathy, but they lack the understanding of stomping on somebody's head 4 or 5 times, and the fact that it could cause a severe concussion, memory loss, death, brain hemorrhage, all kinds of things, right? Or even just throwing somebody on the ground. You need to understand it. I've seen, I don't know, a couple of dozen videos where somebody has been thrown to the ground, and when they hit the ground, they hit the ground in such a way that it's immediately caused them to have seizures, right? Like their whole body tenses up, and or they literally have seizures. And a lot of the people don't even realize they need to roll them on their side, right? They need to make sure their tongue's not going down their throat. A lot of times they don't care. Think about why you're training martial arts again. Are you training it? I tell people to come to me. I teach traditional martial arts. Learn some of that. There's great forms, weapon forms, hand forms, things that you can do for your body health, your exercise, for entertainment value, all of that. That's wonderful. Combat sports that I do, if I have people that are willing to go and it's going to be successful. Again, those things are not, it doesn't mean that you can't use things from that stuff for a conflict, to resolve conflict. But if you're focused on a strategy and tactics and a way to apply this stuff based on what you see people do in the real world around you, you're going to be much more successful at preserving yourself, not just keeping somebody from killing you, but to keep yourself from getting crippled up or hurt in some way. Really, really important. Especially if you have other people with you that that rely on you. Your spouse or your kids, maybe you have small kids, and somebody wants to carjack you or steal your stuff. You have to take it seriously. And again, just because you get this ranking in a martial art, you get a black belt, you get this, it doesn't mean that you grasp the level of violence and anger that someone could come at you with on the street. You have to be realistic about your training. So again, in my opinion, this is my opinion, the average physical conflict, right? You're going to have somebody that's going to try to more than likely close the distance on you, right? Or they may keep it back a little bit if they're a striker. The kicking is going to be minimal. I've seen videos where people get kicked in the head or somebody does a spinning kick, and those are like one in a couple hundred or 1 in 100 or something like that. Very, very low. But striking, pretty much every video that you watch or that you see, the engagement, or in your neighborhood, your community. You may live in an area where it's repressed and there's a lot of violence, and you see this stuff on a daily basis. Tell me if I'm wrong, right? But striking would be number one. Seizing or grabbing hold of you in some way, that may be your hair, that may be your clothes, that may be your body. But they usually are going to try to get hold of you. And then from there, they're going to yank you around, pull you, push you, and keep trying to hit you. They don't want you to get stable so that you can hit on them, right? You have the ones that just throw punches and see who gets pulled down. But then you got a lot of other ones that will get a hold of you and they're going to hit you. And then from this throws, it's not so much that the majority of the people are actually executing a throw in their mind, intent. They don't have the intent that it's a throw. But tripping you, sweeping you, hooking your leg, you falling over, more common than a person would think. Picking the person up has become very common in the last, I don't know. I've been watching these videos for probably over 15 years, and it seems like those things become more and more common. But picking the person up and slamming them on the ground, right? And then there's always the follow-up. Now, if the person is having a seizure or something, sometimes they back off. I've seen other ones where they just keep going. I saw one recently that was such a lack of concern for another person. This was at like a large gas station, and some guy was getting gas, and these two guys approach him, and it looked like it probably that they would have known the guy, so they caught him out, somewhere. And he gets knocked to the ground. And then one guy, I counted it, I watched the video like 3 times to count it out. He stomped that guy in the head and face 15 times. Now, he's on the ground, on the concrete. That means his head is on this concrete. So you got the force of this kick smashing into this guy's head. If it didn't kill him, it probably caused some permanent brain damage. Can you imagine how much that would have shattered the face? Probably shattered, could have broke his jaw, or dislocated it, broke out teeth, crushed the, eye orbits, smashed the nose, probably could have even damaged the eyes, just amazing level. That guy was doing his best to kill that guy. And I'm not trying to freak people out, but do you ever really contemplate, does the style of martial arts that I do, that does these eloquent moves or these, elaborate movements, is this something that will bridge over to dealing with stuff on the street? And again, don't just say to yourself, well, we don't really do any throwing, or we don't do any grappling components, but I do this style and it's excellent at kicking. Well, it might be, but if the guy is willing to take a couple of those shots to get a hold of you, and you can't regain distance, potentially it may not work out for the person well. So again, every martial arts system has a fundamental specialty that it does. And that's great, but if you don't complement it well, like Shuai Chiao, I feel complements the specialty of the throw, right? The kicking and the striking, it can stand on its own. Meaning if I was just gonna, like say for example, you're in a restaurant, and there's 10 or 12 tables, and they're pretty close together. What Shuai Chiao is primarily doing is short-range kicking, right? Kicking down here, so the leg is coming up and down, or I'm striking with the leg down here, I'm striking like this, and I'm striking. Well, what if I don't have enough room in which to throw this guy? I may be able to do a takedown on him, right? It's compact enough. But I may not be able to do elaborate moves, and possibly I wouldn't be able to do long-range kicking. And then possibly on the other side of it, the grappling part, to be able to get the guy to the ground based on the chairs and the tables and other people, it may not be, it may be limiting to me. So, you have to role play out. If the teacher that's training you doesn't ever talk about, well, let's discuss, you're in a car and somebody comes up to you. You know how many people in certain cities and towns get carjacked on a regular basis? You would think that maybe they do, teachers in those towns like that. Maybe that is a priority for them to role play that out and train it, right? There's also, places where people just, they rob people all the time, you want to there's other components other than this, right? There's no do is what I call it. I mean, I'm not going to stop at a certain gas station if it looks, too sketchy. For what? I can go another mile up the street and get gas. I'm not going to go to X event if there's, if I feel that maybe there's too much liquor and drugs or whatever, and it could turn into something else, a probable form, right? So you have that stuff. Then you have situational awareness. Whenever and wherever you are, you have to be aware of what's happening. And then there's the equalizers, weapons, right? We're not discussing that. There's other aspects of training But if you can't even look at the most fundamental the method, right? I'm telling you that if you watch 10 videos, you watch 100, and the majority of the time they're going to strike, the majority of the time they're going to do some kind of seize or control. There's going to be some kind of a push or pull. There's going to be some type of a trip or pickup, and there's going to be some kind of follow up. You can verify it for yourself. Me and what I see was Shuai Chiao, and I do other styles of martial arts. There's some that I teach, and then there's some that I have learned up to, certain levels, not just a few weeks of practice or something like that. But I'm going to say that the method and the approach that Shuai Chiao has to dealing with a physical conflict, I feel is very effective, and it hits on all of the different aspects. Okay? So I'm not saying this Shuai Chiao is the best. I'm saying for me, and me to feel value in teaching it, I feel it's a great approach to continuing with what I'm most focused on, which is dealing with physical conflict with people, not in a sporting event, not in a martial art tournament, but the person that may try to inflict harm on me are people that are hurt people that are with me, are take from me. I want to be able to address that, and I think Shuai Chiao for me does a great job on that. And if you're contemplating on taking Shuai Chiao, I will share with you in my personal thinking that I feel it's a very good approach, and that you would do yourself well, even if you took it for a short period of time. If you're teaching and you're looking for a good, effective system to add into a school where you teach combat sports or you teach other things, it's a great system. It's very well laid out. My teacher, Master Chong, did a great job in creating this methodology. And again, I can cross-compare it. Now, the things that I'm doing over here, like with my ability to kick versus their inability to kick, right? That should tell you something. Like, naturally, humans grab, they clench their fists to hit things, and they pick things up, or they smash things, right? The rest of it is martial science, is what we've tried to develop. But through that martial science, like grappling or more complex ways to throw, or better ways to strike, to get more power or force, or the same thing with kicking, right? Kicking would have been, I seriously doubt it would have been overly, primitive thing, but I digress. I almost, in some ways I think so, especially with the front kick. It's very powerful. Just a little quick story. When I was about I don't know, I couldn't have been more than like 6 or 7, probably like 6 or 7. And my father worked for this construction company, and we traveled, for most of my, until I was like almost out of high school, traveled all over the place and lived in different places. And just a real quick story, during that day, my father had terminated this guy for whatever reason. I don't really know. I was too young, but the guy came to where we were living that night, and my dad opened the door, and the guy is, threatening him and, cursing him out and all this stuff. And my dad, came up and did a front kick and knocked this guy, across the porch and broke the railing, and he fell out in the snow. And at that time, I realized that, how quick something can happen and how something so simple can be effective. And then again, that's why I gravitate to Shuai Chiao. Shuai Chiao, everything has a purpose, everything has a reason, and I'm trying to maximize it, right? The effectiveness of it. That's why we train with apparatus. That's why the forms and the bell crack and the Tao bell we do, it's all about reinforcing the structure, the power, and the force that my body can generate, and strengthening it. That's what the apparatus are for. And then through something like the Shuai Chiao song, you're learning these concepts and these tactics, right? In which to be able to deploy the movements and what things are important to refine. And then training in class. Training in class is about getting that experience working with different sized people and working those throws, working the kicks and the strikes, learning how to seamlessly tie this stuff together with follow-on moves. I mean, you don't want to throw the guy and then have to walk up to him to try to pin him. You need to be able to throw the guy and pin him all in one motion if you're going to go that route. The same thing. You want to be able to get back up off your feet. I don't necessarily want to contend with a person on the ground. Something like BJJ, that's their specialty, right? Or something like catch can. That is one of their specialties is dealing on the ground. I don't want a part of that. I want to be able to get back on my feet so that I can either run off or they have to contend with my striking, my kicking, or my ability to throw. You have to respect martial arts styles for what they do, and you need to respect the people on the street out there that guy might have had 15, 20 street fights and quite good at it, and you don't know that, and you think that you're going to jump up and kick him upside the head, and he's contended with something like that before, knocks you on the ground and stomps on him. That's where kicking comes into play in this type of conflict, right? It's not when you're standing up, it's when you're on the ground. That's when they're going to stomp on you. So anyway, I hope it makes sense. What I'm trying to share with you is simple. Look at what you're training in if you're already training in something. Break it down into the different ranges of fighting that it does, and be honest with yourself. And then try to address it based off of this type of a conflict. And see how many of the aspects that what you're doing, that it addresses and takes care of. And is it based on what you're doing? Is it based on sport understanding, or is it based on somebody trying to, in a sports situation, you're not going to stomp on a guy 8 or 9 times in the head. And if you train if you understand that, that's great. But if you don't think about what the guy will do in the street, and you're only thinking about the rules that would apply to you in the combat sport you're doing, possibly you're going to get hurt in the street. You've got to see that there's no one there to stop it. There's no one there that you're going to submit somebody to, right? And same thing with the striking and the kicking. Some people can just take a bunch of shots. And are you gonna have the gas, the steam to keep hitting this guy? Or would it be easier if you knew a couple of throws and you had to get a hold of the guy and dump him so he's no longer a threat to you? So you have to think through the methodology. As it relates to the overall Shuai Chiao again, I think it covers the basis, but it doesn't mean that I shouldn't explore things, and as a teacher myself, I should be showing people how to do long-range kicking. I should show them some fundamental grappling stuff. I'm not some kind of a master at this, and I don't claim that I am. I'm talking about grappling. But I should be able to show a few escapes and counters and how to get back to my feet, right? Same thing with long-range kicking. I don't need to show them 20 different ways to do jumping and spinning kicks, but I should be able to work that and address it. And when you're practicing, if you do something specific, you should at least practice those kind of things so that you understand how they work and then deal with how to address them and make counters. That's against, I'm talking about somebody that knows martial arts, as they're training in it. But over here, stick with the basics, right? Personally, over here, I wouldn't want to do some kind of jumping or spinning kick and potentially lose my footing on some gravel and then go on the ground and then get stomped on. I can say the same thing about all of these different things, right? There are throws that I can do that I probably, I might not would do on the street because I would be concerned that I may slip, or pivot wrong and, twist my knee or blow out my ankle or fall. I saw a video of 2 girls, looked like they were maybe in Japan. I say girls, they were probably in their early 20s.